Alright, this is going to be, I guess, technically video 4 of the Jitterbean sign. And what I'm doing right now is I just did a practice assembly of the sign boards. And what I'm going to do is glue this up in half. So I'm going to glue 2 boards together and let those dry overnight. And then while these are in the clamps and starting to dry, I'll glue up the other 2. And then when those 2 halves are dried, then I'll glue those 2 halves together to make one long, large sign blank to do the carving with. So this is how I do large projects like this. So here we go, we're going to get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run a bead of glue all the way down the face of one board and inside the slots where the biscuits go. And then I'll come back and I'll do the same thing on the other board down inside those slots. And then we'll quickly work to squeeze them together and get them under the clamps. So I'll video as much as I can. Now you're not going to see the 2 ends because this is pretty wide, but I'm coming out a little past where you can see my left hand out right now. And then the same thing on my right. You're not going to be able to see all the way out there, but that's just the ends of the boards. So here we go. We spread some out, and then when we get to the glue slot, we put some down in there. And then we keep coming down and do the same thing at the next glue slot. And the thing about it, when you're gluing stuff up like this, glue is relatively cheap. So it's better to have a good squeeze out of glue and have a good squeeze out all the way around, because then you know that you've got a good batch of glue between the 2 halves. So I'd rather waste a little more glue and lose it in squeeze outs and not have enough and have that board not be securely glued and laminated for my customer. It's quite embarrassing to have to go back and repair something that you shouldn't have had to do. And so I'll come back with the other side, get them done as well. And then I'll put the biscuits in and get it under clamps. To me, this is fun when you're making something and you know you're the one that's responsible for how it's going to look for somebody else, and you got to make that person happy. And so this is why I take pride in what I do. I want my customers to be happy, and if they're not happy, all they got to do is let me know and we'll figure out a way to make it right for them. Okay, so now we will start to glue up. Pick up the one biscuit that I spilt and dropped, and we just spread it out with our fingers. And like I said, I'd rather have too much glue than not enough. I'll put that biscuit in the joint right there, and we'll keep spreading the glue out, and we'll get the next one ready to go. It's a whole lot easier to wipe up what you've got and to wish you had put enough on there. So we just keep it going right down the line like this. I don't know if you can see the glue squeezing out of the biscuit joint hole, but that's what I want to see. Is I want to see it, because then I know I've gotten a good bit down in there, and it's going to make for a good joint, good tight glued up joint. Yeah. I'd rather have too much than not enough. Each of these biscuits are sticking out about halfway of each board, and they're not a exact precise tight fit. It's more that they're precise aligned from one board to the next, and that's what their main purpose is to help with the alignment of the boards, not necessarily to give it any strength. The strength is going to come from the face of the boards that we're gluing together with the glue. That's where the strength and the good close longevity tight fitting seam we're going to have going to come from is from the glue, not necessarily from those biscuits that I'm putting in. Like I said, those are mostly for alignment purposes, to help make sure I get the board perfectly lined and I have less issues with the boards being in the right position when it comes time to finish the glue up. That means that I'll have less sanding to do because they will be smooth and lined up right. So it's all got its privileges and honors and reasons for being what they're doing. And, so now I'm gonna get this one spread out, and then what we'll do is we'll lay them all flat and get them ready to go together. And I don't know how much of that I'm going to be able to get on the video because I'm going to end up probably having my back to the camera in some instances, and in some places you'll be able to see. And so I apologize ahead of time if I'm blocking your view in some of the places, but I'm just going to have to do that. So, but anyway, this is going to give you some idea of what I go through to make these larger sign blanks. Depending upon the size of the board and the material that the customer wants it made out of, sometimes I can buy a commercially made sign blank, and that will save me a lot of time. But there's also some satisfaction in knowing that I made it from start to finish. So, okay, now we get to start aligning them up and getting all the biscuits in the holes, and then we'll get them squeezed together. Like I said, it's sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's definitely worth it when it all comes together. And it's coming together. Now we got it coming together. Okay. All right. Now I've got to come around on this side over here, and I will start some clamping. So I'll probably be blocking your view for just a little bit. But what I'm doing is using these clamps to pull the body halves together. And then I'll get these going. Now I'll get my hammer and I will get these better lined up. Nice and tight. Okay, that's about where I need it. Take those back in a little bit tighter. Okay. All right, now what I'm going to do next is start putting some what we call, they're called cauls, believe it or not, C-A-U-L-S. And I know I'm off camera and I apologize for that, but these are called cauls, C-A-U-L-S, and on the ends, I don't know if you can see them or not, but they're going to clamp the boards down to help make sure that they're perfectly flat on each end. And I'll do the same thing down here for the set of cawls. One on each side. And those help with the alignment. And then we'll start putting the clamps on. And when you have the clamps on, you have opposing clamps top and bottom. And what they do is keep the forces on opposing sides and kind of balance out the pressure. And it helps keep the boards flat. So now when we come around, again, I'll probably be blocking your view for just a little bit, but I've got to start clamping these up. I'm going to start with one right here in the center. And it's pulled in. And I don't get them overly tight when I'm first starting out. I'll come back and balance them out little by little, kind of get them equal pressure across. And if you'll notice, again, I apologize for going back and forth in front of the camera, but you'll notice that I go from one side to the other, and I make equal pressures. Alright, so now I'll go back to underneath and get those tight again. Go in, come to the center, and that is really about all that I need as far as pressure goes. Make sure that cawl is tight. And I'll make sure this one is tight down here. And then I'll take the rag and I'll wipe off the excess glue that squeezes out. And that obviously makes my cleanup a whole lot easier. And that's also why I wear gloves. This part of the job is messy. But it's a necessary part of the job. Kind of like hitting your hand with a hammer, it hurts. But when it quits hurting, it feels good. Well, when you got all this glue done and everything's looking good and it's all finished, you know it's worth the effort. So kind of a silly analogy, but it's kind of just the easiest way to describe it. Part of a necessary evil, I guess, if you want to go that route. And so it looks pretty good. So I've got the glue cleaned up on that side, and I have more paper over here, so I'm going to flip the board over now, and I'll clean up the glue from the back side. So let me get over here and get the pulling on this side. Now I'll clean up the glue here. Again, once you do this, and it simplifies the cleanup when we get ready to start finishing the sign to the flatness that we're looking for. Those little pieces of wax paper you just saw were supposed to have been on my clamps to keep the glue off of them, but evidently shifted and I didn't catch it. So that just means I get to clean my clamps when I get through with the boards. But it's not the first time, won't be the last time that happens. It's just part of the job. So that, my friends, is what it takes to get a sign blank built of a bunch of boards. Again, like I said, this is just half of it. I'll build another one just like this, and then when I get through building the two halves and they're dry, then I'll glue those together, and I'll pull out my bigger clamps, and that will give me my finished sign blank. So I know this is kind of long, and I apologize for it, but I want to give you just kind of an idea of what goes into making a sign blank. So video number 4 of the Jitterbean coffee. Thanks.